Hey Hernan, we'll get started then. Takes a little bit of time to figure out what you're doing, or sometimes it is the software. It takes time.
Yeah, but it's
Familiarize. That's all. So good. I'm glad you were able to figure it out.
it's it's all marked up. So like I can just comment on that whole I can't think
Why they get these spots.
and it just like you have to think sometimes
So
and you can just keep working. So like go around and change the menu. Like just roll up. And then how like is that if I let's say in practice
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm still learning everyone's name. What's your name again, sir? What's your name? David? Okay. Really quickly, David mentioned something that he had seen my Notion board in a previous lecture, and he was impressed with how I had set it up. So I figured I would just take a moment. This is how I run my entire life. It's quite great. This is just like the classes that I'm taking for my PhD. So for those of you guys that are in HSC 542 next door, this is how I set all this up so that my team has a task list and we can just check things off as we go. We can also see it as like a list, and I have, so the members of my group are all assigned over here. It's really quite fun. We can take all the attachments of the things that we're writing and creating in our Figma boards, and we can put them all in there. And what's nice about this is it's all organized so that I can see all of my classes. Wait, hold on, that's my studio. There we go. I can see all of the tasks that I have for all of my classes right here. And this goes on for a little bit.
Mapped out for like the month or the semester?
I haven't mapped out for the semester, but what's nice is as you have more things that you can just add it in.
Yeah.
Stephen has been a victim of my Notion board. And what's really cool about this, I was telling David over here, take GIT 550 next semester if you want to learn how to do some of this stuff, because we go over project management and design teamwork in that class. But we go further than just like setting this stuff up. It's like tracking metrics for success. This is what's called a burnout chart. It basically tells you over the course of time how many tasks you're completing and where the project completion. You can also look at it as what's called a backlog. This is actually a backlog burn down chart, which is basically saying, here's the number of tasks we have each week. So I have a lot of planning I need to do for this week coming up. I'm a little bit tired. That's because I have 13 tasks due this week, right? And that's just for schoolwork. That's not even my studio. So having this kind of stuff helps you just plan and be successful.
You have this saved as a template.
What was that?
You have it saved as a template. I use Notion, but not to the degree of this.
This one, I'm not great with like templatizing my stuff, but no would be the answer. But could you templatize it? Yes. I have it set up where every time I create a new class, it templates it for me, but it wouldn't work if I just like sent it to you or anything. But yeah, you can do some crazy stuff in there. Notion's great. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about that, take GIT 550.
You use any of the integration to other servers?
Yes, so all of my studio files are stored in Box. Not Dropbox, just regular Box, so I can connect files to that. What else do I use? Google Calendar, because Notion has its Notion calendar. You can integrate that into your Google Calendar, and then your tasks show up. But I don't do that because that would get chaotic.
Did your studio work like side by side with school?
Yeah. In fact, I've got 13 projects active at the studio right now, so I'm a little hair on fire right now, but we're making it work.
Do you have a team that works for you? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was just you for a second.
No.
I was like, I don't know what.
So we also go over that in GIT 515 where I talk about the legal stuff. We talk about like setting up contracts. We talk about working as a team. Some of the legal stuff in that class, I actually bring my lawyer and my accountant in. It's quite fun.
It's the digital workflow class, right? That's the one, right?
Yeah, that's a horrible name. It's getting a new name. We're going to be calling it Creative Team and Process Workflow. If I had it my way, I would have named it Design Team and Project Management, but yay. Can't win every fight, only some. Okay, we're like 1 minute out from getting started, but I just want to give you guys a little bit of a frame up here. Today's going to look very different, not because of any reason, just because we're kind of shifting into a new topic here. We're still in Illustrator, but we're kind of at a point where I can't really show you a whole lot more because you're all going to deviate and do your own thing. So I just want to get a quick pulse check on SpongeBob. How's SpongeBob doing? Is SpongeBob coming to life? Is SpongeBob still a little dead? You know what's horrible? It's okay. Sometimes I really want to stress that this is like Christian said this is done. Good job, Christian. I really want to stress that this is a good class to make mistakes, right? It's also a safe space to make mistakes. Well, yes, no one wants to get an incomplete on anything. It's a safe space to do that because it's an academic environment, right? Worst case scenario, you get an incomplete on something versus you being out in the industry and potentially losing your job because you didn't do it right. So I want you guys to make mistakes, but I really want you guys to attempt and try to get it as close as you possibly can, okay? This is a technical skill, which also means that practice is involved. So the more you practice it, I don't know what's going on with my hair here. There we go. This is a technical skill, which means that you're going to need to practice it. The more you practice, the more you'll get better. Okay? I look back to some of my first things that I did. In fact, do you guys want to see one of the first things that I illustrated in college? Mind you, I spent several days working on this. Let me share my screen. Whereas I'm only giving you guys like, I don't know, several days to do an entire illustration. This was my equivalent of my Apple logo. And mind you, this was, I want to be a little bit careful here. This was back when Tesla was maybe a little less polarized than it currently is. So please don't judge based on the content, judge based on the quality. Let's see. Oh, you know what? No, I don't even have that drawing. This is what happens. Save your files, guys. I'll show you guys one of, so when you guys go into module 4, you're gonna have to recreate some posters. Rather than recreating a poster back when I was in undergrad, we had to just make a poster from scratch. So this is what I created. I really thought I was going to work at Tesla, and I'm so glad I didn't. That's just me. But anyways, what you guys are going to see in today's, this next lab is actually this one. And I actually made these in college as well, but this was much further down my grad study. This is going to take a little bit because it's kind of a big file, but I want you guys to get in the mindset of, thinking about infographics. Infographics are basically taking some type of data. It doesn't matter what kind of data, and displaying it in a way that is digestible to whoever's looking at it. So this is my example of an infographic, because back when I was in college, I used to say I went to design school so I didn't have to do math. I still say that to this day, but that's getting less so because now I'm not just in design school. So this was my version of like, I hate looking at numbers, so let's just not look at numbers and let's use the data that is the measurements that are used to create a Starbucks beverage as an infographic. So the idea here being that you have one of these as little cards sitting next to the barista station as you're learning to make different coffee drinks. So you can see here, like within the cup, you kind of fill it up to here for vanilla syrup, and then you have your steamed milk. And there's also an order, right? Working from bottom to top. When you're working with coffee, depending on the ordering in which you layer the coffee, you end up with a different drink. So for example, the difference between a latte and a macchiato is just the order in which your coffee is dispersed within the drink, right? So here, vanilla syrup, steamed milk, espresso, foamy milk, caramel sauce, espresso, steamed milk. So it is an infographic in a way, but I'm being a little bit creative about what data I'm showing, right? Also, just to prove that I kind of did the project, there's still some type of numbers in there, right? One could say that I kind of gamed the system here. But as you can see, I'm also implementing what's called a design system, right? I'm taking one thing and using it for many things, right? So today, rather than me showing you how to do this, because that's not what the assignment is, I don't want you guys to recreate this. I want you guys to use the skills that you've already gained in Illustrator to think, and you all have some really good visual communication skills. You all made some really nice posters in Module 1. Thank you for those of you who let me share those on LinkedIn. I want you guys to use those communication skills to think about how do I display data as an infographic? And then use the skills that you guys now have in Illustrator to come up with an infographic of your own, okay? So what today's exercise is gonna look like is actually not an exercise at all, it's you guys asking questions, okay? So I want to give the room a little bit of a moment to just kind of think about some of the maybe frustrations that you've been having in Illustrator, and online you're welcome to participate as well. I have my chat pulled up. Think about some of the frustrations you've maybe had in, let me turn this off so online can see us, in using Illustrator. And if I'm able to answer some of those frustrations or maybe show you a shortcut, I will do that. How does that sound? Yes?
I still have a doubt where certain parts, like instead of in last class, you had done an outline of SpongeBob, one outer outline and one inner outline for the stroke.
Yep.
Is there no method to make multiple widths?
Of a stroke? Yes, there is. So the question for online is there a way to make a variably widthed stroke? I'm going to show you this, but I still wouldn't do that for the SpongeBob assignment, only because the outcome is going to be very different. Let me share my screen really quick. And really quickly, Professor Storm, would you mind testing my audio just to make sure that I can hear you in here?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Awesome, and I can hear you. Very good. So the question was, can you make a variable with stroke? And the answer is yes. I'm going to show you guys the new tool that we haven't used yet, and I'm just going to use the line tool to demonstrate this. As a matter of fact, can anyone just really quickly before I answer that question, tell me maybe some of the tools or construction methods that I've used within this poster? Maybe one at a time. Ellipse tool, yeah. So I'm using the ellipse tool here for each of these little circles to make really ellipse and stroke so that I can get that. Yeah, anything else anyone sees? Gradients, yeah. So up here at the top, there's a gradient that goes from a slightly transparent or translucent white, slightly opaque white, all the way over to, there's still a little bit of white in there, but not much. And then consequently, essentially, I'm also using a gradient with the stroke where the gradient in the front is fully opaque and it gets more transparent as it goes to the back, right? So this is a good example of using those design elements and principles where things in the foreground appear to be more clear. They're typically more saturated, they're more dense, whereas things in the background tend to be a little less clear, they're a little fuzzy, right? Anything else that people might see?
Text.
One more?
Text.
Text, yes, up here at the top we've got text, right? I'm gonna ignore the logo as text for right now, but yes, that would be two. Down here I have text, what else? Duplicate, yeah, so see all these little dots in the background that I'm kind of treating as a blueprint? I'm taking those dots, duplicating those, both horizontally and then vertically, right? There's actually a better way to set that up, and that's using a pattern, but yes, that is still a form of duplication. And patterns get a little fussy sometimes, so I usually ignore them. And then additionally, I'm taking the ellipse from each row. It's not a straight duplication, right? Because if you look at it, it's tapering. But what I've done in order to get that is I've taken this top ellipse and I've duplicated it all the way down multiple times, and then I've grouped them all and used what's called the
Center alignment.
no, it's skew tool to bring that all in. Okay, so you can get really complex. So I encourage you guys with each of this. Hold on, words are hard. I encourage each of you guys with this assignment to explore some tools that you maybe haven't used before and just figure out what they do, right? Think about layering, think about a little bit of complexity that you can add here. Okay. Yep.
If you were to do the same thing, can you group it and then just do free form transform?
Probably, yeah. You could probably group it and even just grab the two anchor points on the end and move those in. Again, it kind of goes back to show me 10 ways to do the same thing, right? Yeah.
Have you just align them on a path and then try to shrink them?
Perfect.
Have you done that?
Let me do this question and keep that one in your mind because I will probably forget it and I will demonstrate that as well. So, coming back over to the how do we create a variable width stroke, I'm going to use the line tool over here, and I'm just going to draw a line from one corner to the other. I'm not trying to do anything overly precise here. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So once we have that, there is a tool on here. And I have to remember because I rarely, if never, use it. By the way, there are more tools. So if you see a hand tool on here, nope, hang on, that's not it. Where is it? One of these has additional tools, and why it's not popping up. And when I say additional, I mean like a lot. Okay, so notice what's happening here. I'm wasting time because I can't find the tool that I want. So when you know Illustrator does something, hey guys, this is a little insider tip. College isn't here to teach you how to do your job. College is here to teach you how to find the answers. Okay, so that said, I know that there's a tool called the variable width tool, I think. I can just Google it, and it's gonna say the width tool. I think that's correct in what we want. Let's try Shift W on the keyboard. Yep, as a matter of fact, that is what I wanted. So now it gave me my width tool. It's this funky little thing over here. And now that I have that, I can click anywhere on the stroke and vary the width. Was that kind of what you were looking at? So now you can kind of see how this would actually end up being a little bit more work than just drawing the outline, right?
But can we still try it? It's not
Yeah, you can still try it. You're going to spend a lot of time.
But for example, here you've given one, like the top left side is also this, it's symmetrical is what I mean. Can we like make it separate?
Good question. Let's try some things here.
You could just use the.
Yes, there you go. So
Wanna do that?
to make it asymmetrical, you would hold Option or Alt on the keyboard. That's, again, if you're ever like, I wonder if this thing does anything else. There's two things that you can usually try, Option and Shift, right? So yeah, you can go hog wild with that thing. I have had one use case where I actually have had to use that. And it is, I was designing some, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. We had an art website where I would take all the photos that I take and sell them on a website. And we had some frames that we typically put them in, and I photographed a sample of the frame, but we needed to expand it. And there was so much texture within the frame that it just looked fake and duplicated, and when I tried to duplicate it in Photoshop. So I was like, okay, this isn't that hard. Let's just take them and illustrate them. Most of them are somewhat solid colors, just with a little bit of lighting variation. I actually have this recorded, so I might send it to you guys in the Slack channel. There was one that was really, really highly detailed and needed some of that variance within the stroke width. So I used it for that, but I still haven't finished that project because it annoys the hell out of me. Okay, so we covered variable line widths. Let me pull this back up for online. And then, David, you had mentioned, one more time, remind me.
Can you align everything, like a bunch of shapes on a path and then just manipulate them on the path? Because I know you can do them with words, but can you do that with other shapes?
So let's say that I have a bunch of shapes here. Actually, let me do it this way. And forgive me if this takes me a moment to duplicate. Let's say that I have a path like that, right? So there's my path. And then let's say that I want to take this circle shape and duplicate it along that path. Okay, I think I'm smart. We'll see how smart I am. You can go, let me figure it out and then I'll give you the instructions. So give me one sec. Steps, let's do 8, why not? Well, that didn't do exactly what I wanted. Oh, but I see why. I see why. Okay, so I kind of set it up backwards. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my circle on the artboard, and then put this one over here. I'm going to select both of those, go up to Object, Blend, and Blend options. Now here there are some various selections that you can make. There is a reason for smooth color. I can get to that in a second. Specified steps, that is exactly as it sounds. The number of steps that you put in there and the number of duplicates you're going to get. Specified distance escapes my brain at the moment. The one you will most likely use is probably specified steps. You're gonna hit OK and it's gonna look like it did nothing. That's because you only set OK for the settings. Then you have to go back to Object, Blend, Make. So now I've got them all in a straight line and a specified number of steps. But I think what you're asking is, can I set up a curve or some type of shape? The answer is yes, but you have to do it kind of the hard way as far as I know. Let me add another point here. That kind of what you want?
Yes.
So now, no matter where I move it, those are all connected and they move together.
Can you add points to the curve?
You can. So I actually had to do that in order to get this result. So give me a sec. I hit the plus plus button on my keyboard here to get my anchor point adding tool. And I click on the line, and you can actually add toggles to it as well. So if you don't want it to just be like a clean angle like that, you could move it, key on your keyboard and option, just like we did for the pen tool exercise, and you can add toggles there. It's gonna mess with the way that the steps distort, but I think you might even be able to come back up to here.
Change it to distance.
And go. You can try it. Let's go 6. Why not? Yeah. So there's some kinks with it. If you asked me, it's much easier to duplicate a little bit differently. So this is one way that you can do it. But let's say that I wanted a bunch of circles going around a circle. I'm gonna delete that.
Before you move on to that, if you had to change it, if you had changed it to blend and distance, and then just gave a specific number along the curve profile, would that work better?
Let's see what it does. Here's the thing, guys. Let me stop sharing for a second. Fun fact, you can't break it. Right? Like, okay, maybe don't do it in a client file or something that you're actively working on, but like, just make a blank. If you're ever like, God, I wonder what this thing does, or I wonder if I can make this thing, just go try. I forget who says this. It's a movie quote. Maybe it's Yoda. It says, do or not do, there is no try, something like that. I think I botched it. But yeah, try it. All right. So I'm sorry, you mentioned to try doing object, blend options, and then instead of specified steps, do specified distance.
Yep.
This is where you might need to change some of the requirements.
Size of the circle?
So actually, that's a good point. So let's say that I want the circles to decrease in size as it goes down the line here.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So all I did there was with everything connected the way that I just had it, I just took this circle and I decreased it. So now it's all connected.
It's gonna save so much time.
Oh yeah. You can also increase it. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. Here's what I don't want you guys to get in the habit of is like building things that you don't quite understand what they do. Right? It's like writing code with AI, right? Does it work? Yes, but is it functional? Can you go in and change it? Maybe, maybe not. Right?
So for the same thing, how did you reduce the number of circles?
How did I, one more time?
Reduce the number of circles or
Reduce the number. So I can come over here to object, blend options, and I can just change it from 8 to 4.
You just did that after like selecting one of the circles and it just went to blend and then that's where you like.
So I'll rebuild it there. I'll make a circle on the page. Add a color. Whoa.
You don't have to start with the exact same shape, right?
No,
You have
so-
to do one big, one small, you can just have that.
I can even do a circle and a square.
Oh,
And then take that and that, object, blend, make. And now it's actually, let me do it with less steps. Blend options. So now it's slowly transforming that circle into a square. And now if I want to make this square bigger, smaller,
can you add more shapes or can you only limit it to?
good question.
Because I use affinities a lot, and then there's a way you can like have a bunch of shapes, skewer them on a curve, and then you
Let's try it.
I was trying to wonder how I do that because affinity designer lacking some of the features that the Illustrator have. So
Well,
Illustrator would be
Illustrator has a lot of things that you can do, but sometimes you just might have to go about it in an interesting way. And let me be clear by saying, like, I am by no means. Oh yeah, you can.
oh okay.
but it's picking the order.
Okay, yeah. That's
So
yeah.
I am by no means an Illustrator guru, but I know a heck of a lot, right? And mind you, there are people out there that know way more about Illustrator than me. So like, just get in the habit of when you're like, gee, I wonder how I could do this thing. Search it on YouTube, search it on Google, right? There's no shame in Googling something. Okay, there was one online that I want to double check. Yes, thank you, Christian. Christian, you're always in the chat. I love it. Christian, can you do a little, you could feel free to come off mute if you'd like. Can you do a little explaining for me on what you mean by repeat step? Or you can throw it in the chat if you'd rather not come off mute. Either way is fine with me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Hi, Christian.
Hi. I sort of what you were doing now, where when you go from one step to the next, almost like the gradient that you were doing now.
Okay. I think I'm going to answer your question with this, but if I don't, please let me know. So let's say that I wanted to, I'm going to do a slightly more advanced duplication where maybe we want to duplicate something in a circle. So I'm just going to draw a circle on there, and I'm going to align it center and horizontal. Now, I'm also going to go into Command Y so that I can see my outline preview. And I'm going to, let's draw a circle around a circle. One sec. Just doing a little bit of setup here. Okay. All right. So I have my circle here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit R on the keyboard. That pulls out my rotation tool. All right. Now I'm going to hit Command Y again. And you see this little dot in the middle of the circle? It's very, very small. But that little dot in the middle of the circle is the geometric center of that circle. I'm going to try to get as close to the center as I can. You can be a little bit more perfect than I'm being here, but for the sake of quickness, I'm just going to do that. Once I've done that, with my left hand, I'm going to hold Option and Shift. And I'm just going to drag. Now I have a new circle there. Now that I have those two, all I have to do is Command what? Pretty cool, huh? So Command D to duplicate around that circle there. Can anyone tell me why I held Shift while I was rotating?
It just stays in the aspect.
So, not necessarily, because this is the anchor point that's holding me within the circle.
Equal distance.
Not necessarily. Well, sort of. But specifically, what kind of distance?
Degree.
A specific degree of distance. So when you're working in a circle and you hold and you're trying to rotate something within that, because obviously if you're rotating something, you're rotating upon an axis. So there's a circle involved there, right? So as you're rotating, if you hold Shift, what that's going to do is it's going to lock your rotation to a 45-degree angle. So now that I have this, let's say that I want more than, what is that? Someone do the math. 8? Need a couple extras. So let's say that I want more than 8. I can take this, Command C, and then what do I want if I want to paste it in place? Command F, Control or Command. Sorry, I'm giving commands instead of PC. Then I can hit R on the keyboard again to get my rotate tool. Press Enter one more time. Now, I've already got everything on 45-degree angles. So if I want more circles evenly distributed between the rest of those, you're much smarter than I am. I'm really dumb, so all I want to do is just hit the backslash and 2 to divide it in half. Illustrator does all the math for you. Pretty cool, huh?
What if you did That's like just doubling it though, like what if we did like 30 degrees or just change the degrees?
So you can also do that. So let's say that you, like that.
So it's only doing it in relation to what's already there.
Correct, but you could select what is already there, rotate, and then hit 30 degrees. Let me do something a little less obvious, maybe 15. So it's rotating what's there, and then you can change it. Was that what did I answer your question?
I was thinking like if you wanted to have a circle at every 30 degrees instead of
Oh,
45.
Yeah, you could do that too. Although that gets a little, yeah, you could do that. So the question was, can you duplicate it within 30 degrees instead of 45? And yes, you can. In order to do that, what I would do is set it up the same way. I would hit my rotate tool and put my rotator in the middle. And then when I go to click and drag, rather than holding shift, let me think about this. I'm trying to think about a couple of factors here. Rotate. Place. Oh, you know what? I know what I can do. I'm silly. I can just hit enter once I've placed it. And then, why didn't that work? All right, give me a sec.
Oh, it rotated that little circle.
It shouldn't have though. It sure did rotate that little circle, didn't it? That's the name. Okay. Let me think for a sec. So I have that item selected. This really should work. Because once I place the anchor point, and I press that. Good question. Let me get back to you on that. So this is something that's interesting. You guys are going to have a bunch of people in your careers who are going to want to, do you mind if I use you as an example? You're going to have a bunch of people in your career that are going to want to come over here and like, can you move this and do that? And what if you made this that, right? Over the shoulder art directors is what I call those. It makes it very, very difficult. Yes. It makes it very, very difficult, and you're going to feel a little flustered. Okay? Everyone stop what they're doing and look at me. Don't make changes in front of the client. Okay? Have the meeting to discuss the changes. Close your computer. Go make the changes. Okay? That's how you can avoid some of those over-the-shoulder art directors. And then you don't feel flustered when you're like, learning this tool, what do I do? Right? Trust me. Then when you get really good at it, you can do it in front of 30 to 60 people, right? That doesn't mean I'm without my flaws. What I just did there, in my mind, absolutely should have worked, but there's probably something I'm forgetting, and that's just an in the moment thing. And then you're gonna get home and you're gonna do it exactly how I just did it, and it's gonna work. Or you're gonna find that one little step that you forgot and be like, oh, you dumbass. Right? Like
Those shower thoughts that you have.
yes, exactly. When you mentioned shower thoughts, that is where all the thoughts happen. Okay, any other questions? Christian, did I get close to what it was that you were looking for?
Can I offer something?
Yes, please. Are you gonna correct my rotational error?
No, not at all. I'm going to offer one other way to do what I think was requested a minute ago.
Yeah.
So you've got your circle there.
Uh-huh.
And then you're going to go to object and then repeat.
Oh, okay. So
Now
Professor Storm just showed me a new way.
The dot at the top, the internal dot, yeah, that one. Drag it up, and then you can, yes, and now the little thingy on the right that has the 2 arrows on it. Yep, drag that up and down.
So Professor Storm's way is way cooler. And guys, this is part of it, right? You are not a professional until you can show me how to do the same thing 10 different ways. That's a little overdrawn. I don't want to like beat that in your heads and you're like, I'm not a professional yet.
What's the method?
So yeah, good question. Let me redo that. So file, no, sorry, object.
Yeah, but you have to actually
It helps to have a shape on the board. In fact, let me center that shape. There we go. So object, repeat, radial. And it's going to give you this hump of lump. And then you have to take this top, I don't even know what to call that, toggle, anchor point, something. And you'll drag it out so that you have more repeats. And if you want it to repeat more frequently, you drag this part up on the side. Less frequently, drag it down.
Now, the other thing on the original, yep, you see that? You can also, yep, you got it.
So I would also imagine we can go this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then to answer your question over here, if we wanted to rotate that 30 degrees, you would just come in here to your rotate tool, and that didn't do what I thought it would.
Well, it's because I think you need to still tell it what your center point is, and that's going to be up in, yep, over to the right, yep, nope, up, down. Okay, do you see the thing that looks like a 9-point grid?
Yes, right here.
Yes, now try it.
There we go. So if I make that 15, it's going to rotate. It's a little hard to see. There we go. You see, there Professor Storm was over shoulder art directing me, and I loved it.
With this, you won't be able to edit the size though, because we are.
You can. So you want to see something? Obviously, this is going to disconnect it, but I can always, if I set something up and it's like, ooh, I want a little bit more control, you can always go to Object. I'm going to try something that I haven't done before yet. Okay, that didn't work. So, where is it? Professor Storm is there and expand within that tool, and I'm just a cotton-headed nitty-muggins?
I have not played with that.
Okay. Limitations. My way still wins.
How about rasterized?
Oh, you know what?
Oh, well, yeah, there's that expand.
Damn it. There we go. Yes. So you can expand it. And then from there, if you're like, you know what, I really like this, but I want to create some emphasis over here. Boink. Okay, so you can always typically expand.
That's individual, right? Because when you were doing the blend option, where it did like it scales it down in
scales it proportionally. Yeah.
Because this is a radio one.
I don't know. Go find out. Report back what you find.
I was trying that because I just saw this option before.
Yes.
I want to go back to the question that I asked earlier.
Sure.
For the earlier one, can you like get a curve that's a circle and then extrude like shape and then blend on top of them, or you can, or
I would say
not an option.
I would say this would probably be the closest to that.
Then can you change the individual shape? Because like why did like right now I'm doing like if I change it, everything changes with it.
Yeah.
I can so give me a second. I'm trying to think a little bit further than.
Or there would be a better way to do it.
I would say I would say your blend is gonna be the best choice there. And I'll be honest with you, that's a really, I don't wanna say fringe use case, but I do wanna say like, I've made it 12 years of my career and never had that question. Not to say that there isn't a use case for it, but if you can think of a use case and it's something that you want to explore, I'm sure the answer is yes, something can be done. And if the answer is no, there's probably a really angry forum somewhere about why Illustrator doesn't let you do this. All right, any other questions about Illustrator? No, we're
I
good.
have one more question.
Sure, yes. This
What's
is literally what we're doing today, so fill in your time.
your opinion on the AI raster tracing stuff? And do you have ever used that?
Are you talking about live trace?
Yeah, because I only come back to Illustrator recently, and because I've been moving to Affinity Designer for
Sure.
years. So and they add the AI stuff. What do you say?
I am going to ignore your question for right now. When we're done with module 2, ask again.
Okay.
Only because I really don't want to introduce anyone to that tool in particular until you learn how to do it the hard way.
Okay.
But my answer to that question is, it is good in some cases. So for example, I had a client who had a text logo that needed to be recreated because all they had was a PNG. And I needed it to be a vector so that we could change the color. And this is technically a no-no, but when you're working really, really quickly and the client has approved you to do whatever you need to do, I had the artwork of the file. So to paint, this is on NDA, so I can only draw in broad strokes here. But there was 2 parts of the logo. There's this part, and then there's a text part, okay? So it's kind of a lockup. And then I had the artwork for this part, but I didn't have the font file for this part. So I couldn't recreate it into the vector that I needed. So what I ended up doing was I took this section and I live traced it, and it got the typography down perfectly. The file was great. But it couldn't do this part because there was some finer details in there that it couldn't recreate. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to know your thoughts on it because it's pretty new. I never know that like I would actually want that.
Yeah, live trace has been around for a while, but I think it's getting. Here's the thing to think about, guys. I think there's a great question about AI and illustration is that it's important to remember what AI is trained on. Right? What is AI trained on?
Existing.
Other people's work. Maybe your work as well. So whenever you use AI and there are various degrees of ethical concern around this. I try not to take it to the full extreme. But in theory, you are using someone else's artwork to inform your artwork, which the same could potentially be said about us. We're all inspired by something, right? But at what point is artificial intelligence stealing and not necessarily being inspired by something? So I sit somewhere on the fence. Is it a good thing? Yeah, I think it's going to make our jobs a lot faster. But we also still need to be in control of what's going on. And I don't think we're at the level of control that's needed yet in order to use some of those AI tools. Anything else? Yes.
Going to like the SpongeBob thing, like if you're having like I'm having like a hard time on pen tool on the hand. Sorry, bro. You're having like
really quickly. I can't hear past this group. I'm sorry.
Do you have like recommendations for like the hands? So I'm like having like a
with SpongeBob's hands or your hands?
I guess both.
There's both involved there, so that's why I asked. Recommended, and I apologize. You're saying because they're a little dainty, they're a little small.
Oh yeah, I guess. Do you have like points that you do on his like fingers specific or at specific locations?
For me on his hands, I'm trying to recall back to what I did in my larger video that I sent you guys as a supplemental yesterday or Thursday, Tuesday, whatever today is. I want to say I would probably recommend the pencil tool on his hands, just because you can. Here's the thing: his hands move, right? An illustration like that isn't quite like a logo. You have a little bit more leeway to make judicious mistakes, because depending on the freeze frame you get of SpongeBob, his hand might be in a different position, right? So I don't think you need to be so religious about it like a logo, but I would say use the pencil tool and then just refine it if you need to. I'm trying to think of another potential solution there, but I would say the pencil tool is probably my go-to. Did anyone struggle with like the face and trying to get that aligned well? Was the supplemental video that I sent out helpful, or was it just too long? No? Good? No feelings? Everyone's tired?
So, expanding upon his question, this is something we haven't covered yet, but assuming I wanted to animate SpongeBob's hands in After Effects, would a pencil tool be better in that case, since it would have more like anchor points, or I have no idea?
Professor Storm, you might know a little bit better than I do. Animation is like, I don't want to go there. Not because I don't want to have the conversation with you, but because I am not expertised in animation at all.
Yeah.
I like to say that I fall apart at time-based media. Professor Storm, do you know anything about After Effects?
I so wish I did, but I don't.
I think you and I are in the same boat. You know who would actually be a really good person to talk to is Professor Sangmeister. She is kind of our After Effects person here within GIT. I will tell you this. I really wish I knew more about After Effects. I can get it. I know just enough to be dangerous. But not enough to like articulate a person or a sponge. I know enough to direct someone else what I need out of it. So like if you go to my portfolio website and you see the video that's done on the homepage there, that's all done in After Effects. I have the working file for it, but rather than me do it, I hired someone who's really good at After Effects to say, hey, go make me a video. And then I'm able to art direct with them and say, you know what, just the way this thing moves, is there any way that we can blah, blah, blah. And yeah. And this is a good conversation to have, is like, when you guys go to make your portfolios, you're gonna, you will have an existential crisis around not feeling like you have enough work to show in order to get hired, feeling like you have too much work that shouldn't go in your portfolio. There are a billion combinations that I've heard of, pardon my phrase, excuses for either not doing something or for doing something, it doesn't matter. You guys have to all like really genuinely reflect about what you're hoping for. Are you hoping to become a generalist? Someone who can do a lot of things relatively well, or a specialist who does one or two things very, very well, right? I would categorize myself as generalist. That's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. Just means, and I have my philosophy on this, which is I would rather hire someone who knows a little bit about something and can do it and potentially learn more about it than someone who knows nothing about something that I then have to train from the bottom up or just say no to, right? That's my philosophy. Every different person has a different sentiment around that. So again, that doesn't mean it's a good or a bad thing to be a generalist or a specialist. There are some jobs out there that I would only hire a specialist for, right? I just finished designing some icons with an illustrator that were, and let me rephrase what I just said there. I hired Illustrator, aka person, to do some illustrations for me of icons. And I can very well do icons, that's fine, but these were some really, really detailed icons, and not to mention I have a billion other things that I'm doing, so I needed to offload some work. Had a little bit of a budget, so hey, let's work together, right? They did a wonderful damn job. And they were really, really detailed also. Let me, it's actually relevant, so why don't I just pull them up instead of talking about them? Nope, that wasn't correct. So these were national park icons. Let me get my screen shared here. Obviously, I think I've talked a little bit about my love for national parks, so I'm currently working on a little bit of a brand exercise that includes them. So these are icons for each of the 63 national parks in the United States. So this came together over several months was how long this thing took. Let me go see if I can find the inspiration document that I gave him. Because obviously in this environment, I'm what's called the subject matter expert, or the SME. I'm not doing the work, I'm just advising how I think the work ought to be done. So what I had to do was I had to put together some information. This person is also international. They work over, I think in Bangladesh or something. And hang on, I'm sharing the wrong screen. There we go. So I put together this deck that walked through, like, one, what the heck is a national park, right? A little bit about some relevant notes that they might want to know, a little bit about the visual style that I was looking for, sort of this like halftone dot game kind of pattern. And then I took some inspiration that I've seen around. Some of them are my photos. Some of them are inspirational illustrations from like Anderson Design Group. They're a really prominent design group within the national park space. Having a primary and a secondary photo. I also liked the shape of these illustrations that I had found out in the wild, so I just took some photos of those, but said like, we need to do something like this. I like the shape, but our illustrations need to be unique and distinct, because obviously we don't want to copy anyone else's art. So you're also looking for iconic, when you're creating an icon, and this goes into semiotics, which is another class, but when you're creating icons, you need an iconic symbol in order to communicate, right? So here, the lighthouse at Arcadia National Park is one of the most iconic features of that park. Arches, the sandstone arches are really, really popular out there with the distant mountains. Big Bend, you have the El Rio, no, not that. What is that river called? It'll come to me. You've got a river that goes through the canyon down there. Bryce Canyon, you've got the hoodoos. So just finding a way to illustrate all of those within Capitol Reef. I showed you guys a photo of that one right here with the barn, right? So sometimes you can take these photos that I'm taking out in the wild and you can illustrate them in ways that are unique to you. Fun fact, I'm actually getting these tattooed. That's all 63 of them.
So did the Illustrator do this all in Illustrator?
All of this in Illustrator, yeah.
How do you do the gradient brush effect?
Yeah.
Good question. I actually figured that one out, and I sent him a video. This is one of those things that you research and you remember it for the product, and then you forget it right when you're done. I ended up searching for halftone patterns in Illustrator. So you can do this really, really easily in Photoshop, but it's not very controlled. So we figured out a way, and then what I left in their hands was figuring out how to control it, right? How do we make sure that we're getting the right gradient and things like that? And this is where like, it's really fun for me as a creative director or as an art director is like, I know what's possible, but I don't necessarily need to be in the weeds, right? That's for you all to figure out. That's for the people that I hire to go and figure out. And that's why I hire good people, is because I know that I can come up with an idea, which is what a creative director or an art director does, and say, here's what I'm thinking about it. This is kind of the look that I'm going for. Here's the general shape. Here's the design system we're going to use. Now go figure out how to make it replicatable. That is what the designers do, typically. And usually the designers have some sort of creative input. They can push back a little bit. They can say, oh, I see what you're saying. I can do it this way. What do you think about that? And if the creative director is like, I'm thinking something a little bit different, sometimes it's a back and forth of visual examples, right? Sometimes if you have a really shitty creative director, it might just be like, here's what I think. Have a nice day. See you on Monday. That's never fun. Usually it should be a conversation. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes if you're working at an agency, shit just moves way too fast. So little things like that. Any questions? I could stand up here and I could show illustration examples all day. As a matter of fact, let me do one. How am I on time? Someone please keep me on track. 20 minutes? Wow. I can do a lot with 20 minutes. I didn't mean for this class to turn into a show and tell, but I wanted to give you guys that opportunity to ask those questions. Do we feel good going into the infographic assignment before I keep doing show and tell?
Is there any particular requirement?
I've spelled out all the requirements in Canvas. I think I require that you go and find a certain number of data points that you need to represent. I don't fully recall exactly what all of my requirements are, but it has to be on, I think, an 11 by 17, so tabloid style sheet, piece of paper, artboard. Other than that, though, this is your guys' opportunity to have a little bit of fun. Okay? Yeah.
Have you seen the Visual Capitalist? Their infographics is very good.
I have not seen their stuff. But there's a lot of really great infographics designers out there. In fact, if you guys are following me on LinkedIn, I just shared someone who's strictly an infographic designer. They did a LinkedIn learning thing. Go check that out. There's some really good tips in there. Let me see. Studio.
So when will you be opening the infographic illustration thing? It's currently locked.
It's locked. Hold on a sec. Are you talking about the lecture or the lab?
The lecture.
The lecture. We're doing the lecture right now. So this will unlock this afternoon, but you're basically going to hear what we just did in class. But the lab should be unlocked.
I'll go in and look so you can keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is the beauty of having two professors. Let's see. Do you guys want to see a book cover that was illustrated?
Yeah, I just have a quick question about the Starbucks like infographic you made. Like this is more of a personal like design question, but like why did you put like the dots behind? It looks really nice.
So if you this is where again semiotics is a whole like sub classification of design. Really it's more of like a contextual understanding of design. So and if you read it too quickly, you may have missed it. But what are those called? Beverage blueprint, right? So I'm using the dots, but I'm also keeping the design system for the brand. And I'm using the dots to convey that I'm like, it's a blueprint, right? So that's why those are there. Good question. I appreciate it.
Is there also a reason why you didn't use a color to define each aspect? Like for example, you have vanilla syrup, espresso.
Because that can, so that's a good question. You're sort of identifying that each ingredient or something could be a slightly different color. That gets into a lot of different things. One thing, sort of the immediate answer is accessibility, right? Because if I say espresso, which maybe naturally we might think is brown, right? If I put brown on black, you won't be able to see it. Okay. Right? Because the contrast will be too low. Similarly, if I put blue on black for maybe blueberry flavor or something, I don't know, you're going to have a really hard time seeing it just because the tonal value of a blue is much, much lower than, let's say, a yellow, right?
But if you would incorporate like opaque, I mean like a slightly transparent film, would that still?
Then you're going to end up with a really muddy color on the black and something that's not, like, yeah, I guess you could put a white behind it or something.
It loses the thing.
I was also a college student. Stop judging me. No, I mean, these are some good questions. You can always look at a design and you can say, well, what if this and what if that? And that is just a matter of convention, right? So, or maybe aesthetic, doesn't matter. I mentioned a book cover. Let's see. So this was another one that I did while I was in college. The War of the Worlds. And this one actually has, have I shared this one before? I haven't? Okay. This one's one that I usually pull up at some point in the class. This had like a whole process to it.
Book cover?
Yeah, book cover.
Oh, so nice.
Let me share it this way. Where there was a lot of failure involved in this. Let me go to my portfolio section. There we go. So there's the final mock-up once that loads. That might take a second, so I'll come back to that. This was like the initial, what we call scratchboard technique. I thought in my mind, like, yeah, let's leave it really raw. Let's keep it kind of high level, conceptual. And the scratchboard technique has this like really Halloween kind of vibe. The approach to this was, I actually didn't even know that I was illustrating for War of the Worlds, but I ended up starting something that was going to be a series and never became a series. But I really enjoy Halloween. I love fall. So I was taking this idea that I had in my head, which was every Halloween I can.
There was a question from the student.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Professor Stone. Every Halloween I was going to illustrate a new book cover, like one of the horror books, right? A wealth of horror books. Stephen King could just have an entire library of his own. And I was just going to re-illustrate the cover in a very minimalist style. And I had, at the time, learned about a designer whose name is Ollie Moss. I don't think I have any of his work saved in here, but he does some like minimalist movie poster artwork. So he's re-illustrated Star Wars, he's re-illustrated a couple of things. Here, let's just go on a field trip, shall we? I think it's 2 L's. Yeah, so like this stuff, you can see some pretty clear inspiration from where I came from, right? And I really liked this work that Ollie Moss was doing, and I was like, you know what? This is easy, I can do this. Fun fact, it wasn't easy. So I was like, let's do that style, but I want to keep it kind of low fidelity, something I can do really quick. And so I ended up doing scratchboards, which are a physical illustration technique. You can buy these at any art supply store, really. What you do is the transfer technique that I did, but instead of transferring it onto a piece of paper, you transfer it onto the scratchboard, and then you go into the scratchboard and you just etch out whatever it is. This is really bad, by the way. There are some very beautiful scratchboards out there. I am not a good artist. I'm a great designer, not a good artist. And I just started compositing things, right? I found this alien head image on Pinterest, I think, just the silhouette. And then I found this tripod which that's like the name of the alien robot spaceships in War of the Worlds. And I traced that and was like, oh, that would make a great eye. Let's put that there. And then found this as like a photo of Half Dome in Yosemite. I found these tentacles and just like composited that in there. I made the typography myself from a couple of other pieces of typography and then added the sort of different shaped tripod in there with those. And then, so there's like the early sketch of the alien head without the tripod, right? There's kind of the final book mock-up. This is all out of order. There's the individual tripod, and as you can see, I drew it one way at first and then eventually rotated it, right? And kind of did a really bad job at duplicating it. Scratchboards are kind of finicky. You don't quite get the rotational capabilities that you do with the pencil. There's the typography that I kind of mocked up and put together. And then this is the full artboard where it's like, okay, here's each of the individual pieces, here's the color drawdowns, there's the sketches, there's the final product. And this is using some of those design principles as well, whereas it's like, the further you go back in the art, there's like a little tripod back there, but it's really blurry and kind of opaque. Or translucent, I should say. So that's more show and tell for you, right? Just get in the habit of saving everything, right? Yeah.
Is it really, I'm not really sure. Like, I designed a book cover for my college class in my bachelor's, but like when I was designing it, I always found myself in a dilemma whether I should keep the background of like my front cover or the back to be like really minimalist or essentialist. Is it like a good idea, or do you like experiment more with paper and see how the texture of that book comes out when it gets printed? It's very.
So if I heard your question correctly there, it was that as you're designing, you're trying to figure out like, do you add something to a certain area of the design, or do you leave it just like plain paper?
Yeah.
It depends.
Exactly, it depends upon. Like, it's very contextual, but let's just talk about your book design.
Sure.
The black area around that face. Did you think about experimenting with like the print?
Absolutely. So actually, that's a good thing you bring up, because if you look at the final design, let me pull it back up there. Look at the final design. What's different from what I showed in the scratchboard? It's missing the tentacles.
Oh yeah.
Right. So yeah, I absolutely did explore like what happens if we fill in some of the negative space, right? And ultimately, as a creative choice, I decided to redact it. I thought I made it a little too busy, right? But also, I had a lot of conflicts within this design. So if you look at the tripod within the typography, it's different than the tripod that makes up the eye, right? Is that a bad thing? No, maybe not. But also, could there have been a way where maybe they were the same? That way there's continuity, right? And unity within the design? Probably. But then similarly, the reason that I ended up removing those tentacles is that these tentacles are kind of claw-like, whereas these ones are a little bit more like, I don't have a better explanation for that. What was that?
It looks like the side of a head, and that's intentional, right? Like it almost resembles like an android or a droid or something.
Yeah, absolutely. That's intentional. I'm using the silhouette of like an alien head to imply that these are aliens coming to Earth, right? So I'm using symbolism there to kind of get you to pick it off the shelf.
And then this image is perspective from like a cave or something.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly it. That's why the edge is nice and torn, right? It's doing a lot of things that are really quite good. And I'm not trying to stand on a soapbox here. There's also a lot that it's doing very wrong, right?
Tell us about that.
But I mean, that's something. You can always, I designed this 13, 14 years ago. Like, you can look at everything with aggressive eyes, or you can like choose to pick out what does actually look good, right? Would I want to do this today? No. I did this because I had a school assignment. And like, I'm standing up here and I'm speaking somewhat affectionately about illustration. I hate working in Illustrator. It is a great tool to use, but if I could spend my time thinking about the strategy more than I'm thinking about how do I construct this one little curve or whatever, I would so much rather spend my time doing that. But in order for me to do the strategy part, I have to understand what is possible. And then to make a good strategy, push my design team to the edge of what's possible. And try new things and experiment and come up with new ideas, right? Stephen's a victim of this. In my team in HSE that we're working on these UAVs for, I have one segment of the design that I'm working on, but instead of me coming in and controlling the process and saying, what if I go and make the design system and you guys just copy that, hold me to it, I actually assigned that to everyone else. Because I can go in and I can do that really quickly, but that doesn't help me learn and it doesn't help anyone else, right? So instead, I took the two other members of my team and said, hey, what if you two go and collaborate on coming up with these and I'll come in and I'll offer feedback and maybe some tweaks. It's a different way of design that isn't, let me control it, right? Again, take GIT 550, learn about design team. All right, I think we're at time. Any last questions? Was this helpful or was this just like annoying? Helpful? Okay, good. I'm sure it's maybe a little less helpful for the people online, but if you guys have questions, send me a message in Slack. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I do want to really quickly address before we head out, the peer review papers. That is all on hold for right now, so please just give me a little bit of time. I have to collect all the papers and make a spreadsheet, and then I'll manually assign you guys. That way you guys can access the papers and the images. Give me a little bit, there are, I think, 80 something of you guys in this class, so just give myself and Professor Storm a little bit of time to collect all that. And then we want to give you guys a little bit more of a checklist to go through as you guys are looking through some of these papers. So just give us a little bit of time on that. We'll let you know when those are ready. Ideally at a time where maybe things aren't so crazy and due dates aren't so tight. Okay? All right. I'll see you all mostly in the next class. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, those of you online.